You won't believe it, but this exists in Madagascar. Today, you'll learn about 15 scary taboos that only exist in this country. I'm sure you'll be shocked, so join us and let's go. Number 15. Fadi, cultural prohibitions. When arriving in Madagascar, it is essential to understand the concept of fadi. This is a series of cultural taboos and prohibitions that are deeply rooted in local traditions. Fadi can involve restrictions that apply to people, places, objects, or actions, and is an essential part of daily life in the country. Fadi is a legacy of centuries of cultural and religious practices. In many parts of Madagascar, there are general prohibitions that everyone must follow, such as respecting sacred sites such as graves. Pointing at a grave, for example, is seen as a serious act of disrespect. Another example is the prohibition of pregnant women from eating pork, which, according to tradition, can bring bad luck or even harm the baby's health. These prohibitions can also be specific to communities or villages, meaning that what is considered fadi in one place may not be considered fadi in another. Furthermore, certain animals and natural elements are protected by these taboos. In some regions, such as the Montagne d'Amber Mountains, hunting certain species, such as foxes, is prohibited due to local folklore. Number 14. The habit of staring. One of the most peculiar cultural behaviors is the habit of staring at people. When walking down the street or interacting with locals, it is common to notice that Malagasy people tend to stare at others, especially foreigners. Although this behavior can be disconcerting to those who are not used to it, it is not done with negative intentions. Most people who stare at someone are simply curious, wanting to observe what you are doing, or simply checking out your appearance. This behavior is deeply related to the local culture, where people often have a more collective view of society and a natural interest in the lives of others. It is important to remember that when being stared at, it is not advisable to react in a hostile or uncomfortable manner. Ignoring the look or carrying on with your activities is usually the most appropriate behavior. Number 13. Don't mess with pregnancy. Malagasy culture has a number of traditions surrounding pregnant women, many of which are deeply rooted in local spiritual beliefs and customs. Pregnant women hold a special position in society, and certain behaviors and actions are restricted to ensure the well-being of both them and their babies. Ignoring these taboos can have significant consequences, both socially and familially. One of the most common taboos, for example, is the restriction on the consumption of pork. As we mentioned earlier, it is believed that pork can harm the health of the pregnant woman or even negatively affect the development of the baby. Another practice that is avoided is climbing trees, as it is believed that this can cause the baby to fall or cause other problems during pregnancy. In addition, pregnant women are also discouraged from participating in certain traditional ceremonies or dancing, as this is considered harmful to both the woman and the child. I have a question for you. First, I'd like to tell you that it's possible to keep up with the biggest curiosities of our world every day. But for that, you need to be subscribed to our channel. So, have you subscribed yet? If not, take the opportunity to subscribe now. Now that you've done that, let's go. Number 12. Dancing with the dead. There is a tradition that may seem strange and even macabre at first glance, the Famadihana, or turning of the bones. This ritual, which dates back to the 17th century, is a practice that involves exhuming the bodies of the deceased and dancing them with the living. During the event, relatives dig up the remains and wrap them in new clothes. They then begin a celebration with music and dance, while the bodies are revered and dance with the living. The Famadihana is considered a way to honor ancestors and keep the connection with them alive, showing love and respect. During Famadihana, the celebration goes far beyond dancing. There are also animal sacrifices, such as chickens or oxen, and abundant meals for the guests. The event serves as a grand family reunion, where stories and teachings from the elders are passed on to the younger generations, ensuring that the legacy of the ancestors is perpetuated. By performing this ceremony, the family is reaffirming its connection with the past and ensuring that the dead are never forgotten. Number 11. A pirate's paradise. If there is one thing that makes Madagascar fascinating, it is its history linked to piracy. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the island became a strategic refuge for pirates and adventurers due to its privileged geographical location and its deep waters, ideal for hiding places and clandestine actions. Pirates chose Madagascar not only for its position in the Indian Ocean, but also for the security provided by its bays and coral reefs. Some of the island's natural harbors were accessible only by sea, allowing pirates to make their moves without being easily detected by patrol vessels. During the height of piracy, Madagascar was seen as a kind of pirate's paradise, where looters, smugglers, and adventurers could hide out and even trade their stolen goods. The island, it became a center of illegal trade, with activities ranging from the smuggling of goods to the trafficking of slaves. Number 10. Restrictions on inheritance and property. Madagascar has a complex legal system regarding inheritance and property, with rules that generally disadvantage women. In many communities, women have limited access to property, with men considered the primary heirs. After the death of their husband, widows may be stripped of their land and assets by the deceased spouse's family. This practice, known as black widowhood, occurs frequently, especially in rural areas, leaving women in a situation of extreme economic vulnerability. Furthermore, daughters generally inherit less than sons, reinforcing women's inferior position in the family hierarchy. This gender inequality in inheritance and property is seen as a way to perpetuate male dominance and limit women's financial independence. Number 9. Eating leather shoes. In Madagascar, a country facing enormous economic and social hardship, food shortages have led some people to resort to extreme measures to survive. Hunger is a cruel reality for many, especially in the south of the country, where drought is devastating. For 3 consecutive years, the region has not received a drop of rain, leaving arid lands and families in despair. In their struggle to survive, the population has reached the point of resorting to consuming leather shoes discarded by tourists. This scenario is linked to extreme poverty. Madagascar has a population of approximately 26.3 million people, but an annual GDP of only $10 billion, resulting in an annual per capita income of just $405. People therefore lack access to basic foodstuffs, and the United Nations Food Aid Program estimates that 30,000 people are suffering from severe hunger. Of these, a significant proportion are facing what is classified as famine level 5. The most critical stage, where basic survival needs are not being met. This situation is exacerbated by climate change, which makes growing food even more challenging. Faced with this scarcity, many families resort to unsustainable and unthinkable methods. When the little food that arrives is insufficient, they boil leather shoes, a material that, despite being inedible, can provide some temporary relief, mainly due to the heat and humidity in its components. Number 8. Don't venture into villages alone. Traveling around Madagascar without a local guide can be a huge mistake. Although the country is rich in stunning landscapes and a fascinating culture, entering villages without proper knowledge can be risky. In many areas, social and cultural norms are very strict, and the absence of a guide can result in misunderstandings and uncomfortable situations. Before interacting with any villager, it is essential to meet and greet the local leader. This authority figure, often an elder or tribal chief, is responsible for managing the rules within the community. In Madagascar, social hierarchy is highly valued, and failing to show due respect to these leaders can be interpreted as a serious offense. However, if you approach elders with due respect, they will usually be very approachable and even willing to share interesting aspects of local life. In terms of trade and exchange of goods, cash exchanges are the most common in Malagasy villages. If you want to buy something as a souvenir or make some kind of contribution to the community, it is essential to have cash, as other payment methods are rarely used. Number 7. Don't mess with protected animals. Some of the animal species that inhabit this island, such as lemurs, are found exclusively in this territory and play an essential role in the local ecological balance. However, many of these animals are at risk of extinction, which makes preserving the fauna a priority for the country. Therefore, it is essential to respect the laws and customs that protect these incredible beings. Hunting or interacting with protected animals is prohibited by law and can result in serious legal consequences. Lemurs, for example, are not only symbols of the local fauna, but also have great cultural significance. For many Malagasy communities, these animals are considered spiritual ancestors, and any violation of these beliefs can be seen as a profound disrespect. When it comes to observing wildlife, the recommendation is always to keep your distance. Number 6. Bury the umbilical cord. The traditions of Madagascar are deeply rooted in beliefs that go back centuries, and one of the most curious involves the treatment of the umbilical cord and placenta after the birth of a child. When a woman gives birth, the role of burying these biological elements falls to the father. The procedure is carried out according to an ancient practice that requires the umbilical cord and placenta to be buried under a flat stone in the entrance to the ancestral home. This symbolic action reflects the belief that by correctly fulfilling this tradition, the family lineage will be perpetuated. In urban areas, the process is not as specific, but it still follows the same essence. The umbilical cord and placenta are buried near the house, in a place that is considered free from pollution, which, according to traditions, ensures the health and future of the newborn. Superstition in Madagascar is so strong that a person who has not been buried properly at birth is considered likely to suffer from mental retardation. According to popular belief, failure to bury the umbilical cord properly is the cause of any delay in mental development, and not biological or genetic factors. Number 5. Avoid certain foods. In Madagascar, as in many cultures around the world, food is deeply tied to religious and social beliefs. Some foods are considered taboo or fadi, and it is essential that visitors understand these prohibitions to avoid disrespecting local traditions. These food taboos can vary by region, tribe, or even family, reflecting a rich cultural tapestry that values certain foods while prohibiting them in other circumstances. For example, in some areas, lamb or wild boar meat is considered unfit for consumption, while in others, fish with bones is considered forbidden. These food taboos are not limited to a simple set of restrictions, but can also be directed at specific groups, such as the elderly, children, or pregnant women, who have their own dietary rules. Thus, in certain communities, even a traditional dish can be seen as inappropriate depending on who eats it. Number 4. Don't be impulsively generous. A tourist's generosity may seem like a natural response to seeing children begging for help on the streets. However, it is important to keep in mind that the practice of giving money directly to beggars, especially children, can have negative consequences and even contribute to a cycle of exploitation. Many children you see on the streets of Antananarivo, the capital, or Tuamasina, are involved in organized theft schemes. Although they may seem to be simply asking for a contribution, the act of putting coins in their hats can act as a distraction while other people try to steal their belongings. The trick is sophisticated, and tourists often become targets without realizing it. Number 3. You can only eat after adults. One of the most deeply rooted traditions in local society is respect for elders, which extends to the simplest everyday habits, such as meals. In many communities, in rural areas, this respect is clearly and ritually demonstrated during mealtimes. When food is served, no one, not even children, can start eating before the adults. This includes the father, mother, grandparents, or any other authority figure in the house. Only after seeing the elders pick up their utensils and start eating can the rest of the family serve themselves. Rice, for example, is the basis of practically every meal. Present in every dish, from breakfast to dinner, rice is considered essential for satisfaction and well-being. Rice is so important in Madagascar that in addition to being the main food, it also appears on the local currency. On the 10,000 AR banknote, there is an illustration of a woman selling rice, symbolizing the value that this food has for Malagasy society. In some regions, even rice water, called ranola, is consumed and is believed to have essential nutritional properties. Number 2. The Death Stone Forest. The stone forest of death, known locally as Singi, is one of the most unusual places on the planet. With its arid landscape and unique rock formations, it has become a must-see destination for adventurers looking for something completely different. In 1990, the Singi was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, in recognition of its geological and ecological importance. The Singi is made up of 2 main areas: the northern area, a nature reserve covering approximately 531 kilometers, and the southern area, where the Tsingy Bemaraha National Park is located, covering an area of 666,000 kilometers. The park, which borders the west coast of Madagascar, is one of the largest conservation areas in the country. It is home to an impressive biodiversity, with mangrove forests, several species of birds, lemurs, and even wild foxes. The term, Tsingy, comes from the local language and means a place where no one can walk barefoot. This is due to the fact that the rocks of the Tsingy are extremely sharp, forming a landscape of sharp rock pinnacles that challenge any visitor to walk without due care. Anyone attempting to explore the rock formations should be prepared for the risks, as the edges can easily pierce anything they touch. Number 1. All houses should face west. One of the first things that strikes visitors to Madagascar are the local houses, which have a very peculiar characteristic. They all face west, When observing the architectural layout of Malagasy homes, it is impossible not to wonder about the reason for this orientation. The answer, like many traditions in Madagascar, is deeply rooted in their cultural beliefs and relationship with nature. According to traditional building practices, houses should be positioned so that the front of the house faces west. The Malagasy believe that this direction is the most beneficial, as it is where the sun sets, providing the best daylight. In addition, afternoon sunlight, which shines more intensely on houses facing west, is seen as essential for ensuring good health for the residents. Strong sunlight helps combat moisture inside homes, a factor that, if left unchecked, can result in the growth of mold and bacteria, which can compromise quality of life. Now I want to know from you, which country do you want to see next on our channel? Leave your answer in the comments. Take advantage and click on this video that is appearing on the screen. You will learn everything about India, the country where women openly defecate on the streets. Are you curious? Then click now to check it out. Well, that's it, and until next time, curious.